Welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society's monthly program. Today's seminar is Geraniaceae.
Geraniaceae.
Thank you, Robin. The exciting world of geraniums and pelargoniums with Robin. I didn't ask you Prayer. How do you pronounce your last name? Pear. It will last approximately 90 minutes and be recorded. A few days after the presentation, you will be emailed a link to the recording and to an evaluation form to provide feedback. Questions will be answered during the program. For those viewing on Zoom, submit your questions by clicking on the chat box icon at the bottom of your screen. Before we start, a little information about what is happening at the Arboretum Society. Our nursery in San Mateo Central Park is open Saturdays and Sundays from noon until 3. Payment is by credit or debit card and Apple or Google Pay. No cash is accepted. The nursery is staffed by volunteers and may occasionally be closed, so check our website, sanmateoarboretum.org, or call 650-579-0536, extension 2 for updated information. While you're in Central Park, visit our newly renovated fairy garden, butterfly, hummingbird, and sun and shade demonstration gardens, and the rose garden. All these gardens are maintained by Arboretum Society volunteers. Today, we're very pleased to have Robin here today to talk about geraniums. She has owned and operated Geraniaceae nursery in Marin County for the past 40 years and has collected and propagated over 500 geranium species, selected colors, forms, and hybrids. She has received an annual award from the California Horticultural Society for outstanding and meritorious contributions to horticulture in California. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you so much for the San Mateo Arboretum Society for inviting me here and to have all these enthusiastic geranium lovers coming out on a Sunday afternoon. This is really special of you, and thank you. I hope the plants live up to your expectations. What we're going to do is take you to the first year university, a course on how to identify and deal with your geraniums. Actually, they're not geranium. Well, some of them, most of them here are not geraniums. They're pelargoniums. I have a nursery, and I'll tell you how to pronounce the name. You think of it in 3 parts: Geraniaceae, or Gerani, and spell the word ace. Geraniaceae, Geraniaceae. And once you can say Geraniaceae, you can say Rosaceae, the rose family, or any other family, any other botanical family. So Geraniaceae. My nursery is located in, or at least we have, an ancient 1932 greenhouse in Richmond. It's barely held together with glue, and when the wind blows, the whole thing moves like a sailing ship. But we have over 1,000 taxa, different plants, different named plants in the geranium family there, primarily pelargoniums. And I'm going to take you through the different genera, the different groups of pelargoniums, geraniums, erodiums, monsonias in the Geraniaceae, which means the geranium family. So this is a study. You thought you were coming here for a Sunday afternoon, just hanging out and chatting and looking at plants. No, you're going to work. So we'll start off by so this is Geraniaceae, Geranium, Pelargonium, Erodium, Monsonia. Everything you need to know. So when you stagger out of here with your head bursting in an hour, you should know everything. So that'll be good. Now, how do I advance it? Okay, this is what my greenhouse looks like. ancient, and actually it looks in pretty good condition. At the moment, some of the panes are missing, but it looks relatively tidy. In blue, in dark blue on the screen, is Geraniaceae.com. I'm online, and so you can look at pictures online. I have a catalog, and you can also order online. And if you want to talk to me, my email address is geraniac@pacbell.net. And I know Pacbell is ancient, but they've allowed me to keep it. So geraniac@pacbell.net. Pacbell, by the way, has 2 L's. I thought I'd show you a picture of probably the earliest photo, it's not really a photo, it's a painting, of the pelargonium in the United States, because pelargoniums didn't come from the United States, they came from South Africa. And they went from South Africa to, first of all, to Holland in the 17th century, and then to the rest of Europe. And then finally, our brilliant Thomas Jefferson ordered seed in about 1762, somewhere around there, from a friend in France. And he sent pelargonium seed to North America. And that was the first written case we have of people starting to grow pelargoniums. This is Rubens' peel with a pelargonium. The painting was made in 1801. And Rubens' peel eventually became an administrator of various museums. But he's a 17-year-old, and he has his hand in a pot of Pelargonium inquinans. It's a species that came directly from South Africa, and it looks like it needs water. And it's droopy. And so every time I see it, I feel like rushing out and getting the hose and giving it a good drink. It drives me crazy. But it's our first written indication that pelargoniums were grown in the United States. This is the family, the Geranium family. And the family has 4 different groupings, 4 genera: Pelargonium, Geranium, Erodium, and Monsonia. And from the Pelargoniums, we get all the group that we're familiar with. All the ones like the zonals, the ivies, the uniques, the centers, and domesticum, which is called regal in all parts of the world except the United States, where it's called a Martha Washington. So Martha Washington's a domesticum or regals. I tend to call them regals because I've got my foot in 2 camps, but most people here call them Martha Washingtons. And then there are a couple of other groups from Hortorum, which are the zonals. You get Formosum, and they're the ones with the shreddy petals, and you can see them up here. We've got a whole lot of those today, just because they happen to be in flower. And the stellas. And the stellas usually have narrow petals that are shredded on their tips. But they're wonderful plants because they flower over a long period of time. And then the angels. The angels are ones that are a hybrid between the Martha Washingtons, the regals, and the scented group. So some of them have faintly scented leaves. When they were initially developed, which was at the beginning of the 20th century, the scents were more, you could identify the scents. But now growers and hybridizers don't keep good records, and we have no idea what the parentage is of most of these plants. So this is the family. Well, we know about pelargoniums, and I think that at least some of you know about geraniums. Geraniums are the hardy plants that are found in wild areas all over the world, except for Antarctica and the Arctic. When you go out into the bush, you're going to trip over a geranium. They're everywhere. Some of them are garden worthy, and a lot of them, frankly, even from somebody who loves them, are weeds. So then the next grouping are erodium. And if you have a rock garden in your place, then you've probably grown at least one erodium, and they're in the geranium family. And we'll look at some of those in a little while. And then lastly in the family, there are monsonias. And quite frankly, I'm sure practically no one here would grow monsonias. They're found primarily in the grasslands of Africa and in the southwest corner of South Africa. And they're plants that are survivors in torrid, difficult growing conditions. And they're just not very common. So moving right along, this is what a geranium looks like. Now, I know that all of you call pelargoniums geraniums. I know this. And I have been trying for 40 years to change everybody's mind. And I have had 0 success. But I continue to keep on trying. So this is what distinguishes, well, we'll talk in a minute about what distinguishes a geranium from a pelargonium. But this is a geranium. And these blue plants in the 1 gallons to my right are also hardy geraniums. And we call them hardy, not only because they're winter hardy, but because they're tough and because they're a different grouping from what you call geraniums, which are really pelargoniums. So this is Geranium magnificum in a flower bed in an exhibition in France. This is Geranium magnificum. And this is a pelargonium, not a geranium. And the reason that you can tell almost immediately, at least with the single flowers, it's more difficult with the doubles, but with the single flowers, all geraniums have 5 petals. All pelargoniums have 5 petals. All erodiums have 5 petals, and all monsonias have 5 petals. They've all got 5 petals when they're in their single form. Now, this is, you can usually tell pelargoniums from geraniums just roughly if the 2 upper petals are usually larger than the 3 lower petals. So there are 2 up and 3 down if you look at a species. That is a plant that's been taken out of the wild. If you look at a pelargonium like this, you're absolutely bewildered, but because it does have 5 petals, but they're so ruffled and divided and everything, it's really hard to tell. But it is, believe me, a pelargonium. So this is Pelargonium Craig Hansen. And this is Madame Nonin. This is also a pelargonium from France. It's a nightmare. How can you possibly tell that it's got 5 petals? Well, you can pull them out and count them, and it does, in fact, but they're split and divided and ruffled and everything. This is a scented leaf, by the way. And this is a monsonia. They look different. A lot of the monsonias have spines and these funny little leaves because they grow in an area that gets less than 1/8 of an inch of rain a year. And so they live where there are coastal fogs coming off the cold currents that flow off the west coast of South Africa. And occasionally I see plants in cactus and succulent collections, but generally not among just normal collections because they require special care. Here's another picture of a monsonia. These grow in the grasslands just north of Cape Town in South Africa. So these are erodium. And actually, these are lovely. If you haven't got much space and you're only growing in containers, these are fabulous plants because they're very floriferous. They put on a great show, mostly in the spring, but also in the early summer as well. This one is called Catherine Joy. And most erodiums have these kind of church window pane kind of blotches on the upper petals. And they're beautiful and varied. And so let me see if there's another one. No, we're getting onto soil. So a lot of you probably grow at least one, and I'm going to call them by their right names, and you'll have to interpret me, right? So we're going to talk about, first of all, we need soil. Before we think about plants, we need soil. So the geranium family is very widespread all over the world, I've said. Pelargoniums generally do well in a sandy loam. Sandy loam. The one question that I get when I get rude emails is I've been taking care of my plant every day. I've been watering it, and it has died, and in spite of all the love that I have given it. So too much water equals love equals too much water. So you just have to be very restrained about watering pelargoniums because they come from a climate very similar to California. They just like to be watered, then mostly, but not left totally dry until they're watered again. So you just need to space things out. If you love a plant, you don't, or at least a pelargonium, you don't overwater it. Soils dry out between waterings. Regimen should be maintained in cultivation. Don't keep the soil permanently moist. I think everyone who's written to me, because we're a mail order nursery, and has said my plant has died, and they've sent me a picture, and I'm looking at soggy soil. Erodiums do best in a rock garden soil mix with good drainage because they're plants that are mainly found in the mountainous areas of Europe. And so they're used to rocky, hard winters, good drainage, and the roots usually are long and they cut themselves in among rocks. Long pots, I usually recommend long pots for growing erodium if you're not putting them in a rock garden situation. Geraniums grow well in all kinds of soils. If you're growing a species, it's easy to look it up online. There's a huge amount of information online, and it tells you, usually it'll tell you where the botanist found the plant, and it might even tell you the soil type so that you can give the plant exactly what it needs for maximum growth and beauty. There are some geraniums that only tolerate alkaline soils. Most will take just about anything, but some geraniums only like alkaline. And so with that, you have to usually add a bit of lime. Alkaline soils usually found among the rock garden geraniums, the ones that are found in the mountainous areas. Monsonias, I said, are plants of the grasslands and deserts, not many in cultivation. The desert members are summer dormant. Summer dormant means that they go to sleep in the summer and they get absolutely no summer water. This is a concept that many people who love plants find very difficult because if you love a plant, you tend to water it. So what you have to do is after it flowers in the spring, you put it away where you can't see it. And you leave it there unwatered until the fall when it starts to grow again. It's a system so that the plant doesn't get wet when the summer temperatures are high and causes the roots to rot. How to grow pelargoniums, geraniums, and erodiums from seed. So what I suggest is tools, strong light, magnifying glass, pair of wood splinter tweezers, and paper towel, because if you spread them out on paper towel, they don't jump on the floor, which in my case is brown tile, and which means that I spend several hours on my knees looking for one seed. So the important thing is to just to keep them in one place while you're working with them. When you plant them, you need a seed soil mixture, prime grit, gravel, small container, pencil, label. You'll be able to see these online, so I'm not going to go through too much. But you peel off the outer seed coat and then very carefully just give a tiny little prick to the fat end of the seed. And that allows the water to get into the seed and causes more rapid germination. Then you place the seed horizontally in a container, and you cover it with about 1/8 of an inch of soil. Then fine grit. Our label, always a label, always a label. I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, I bought a plant from you 5 years ago. Its flowers are pink. What is its name? We've probably all done this actually. And then you put it in a light, bright place until the seed germinates. You can propagate geraniums, pelargoniums, erodiums, and monsonias from seed, and the seedling will come true from the parent. And this is something that some gardeners have trouble with. How can you tell which is a species and which is a cultivated variety? You look at the name, if you're lucky enough to get the name, and find out how it's written. So Pelargonium graveolens is a species, and it can be propagated from seed. Big P, little g, Pelargonium graveolens, tells you it's a species because the second name is lowercase. Geranium sanguineum Christian Jacob is a selected form of Geranium sanguineum, and it cannot be propagated from seed because it's a named variety that has occurred spontaneously in the garden, and the seed won't give you the same plant. Or Pelargonium graveolens, attar of roses. Graveolens, you can propagate from seed. Graveolens, attar of roses, no. You'll get something, probably something quite different. Or Georgia peach, which is a hybridized form, can't be grown from seed either, because you won't get Georgia peach. You might get something that looks like one of the parents, or you might get something that looks slightly off in some way. So everything except plants that are labeled with a big letter at the beginning, a pelargonium or geranium, and a little letter at the end, those can all be grown from seed, but anything that has a cultivar name, no, you have to do cuttings. And this is what we're going to go through this afternoon. Pelargonium awn, that's what the seed looks like on a pelargonium. The awn, the seeds, and the pedicel is the stalk, and then on the right-hand side, the flower. And this is what the seeds look like. They're miracles, really, seeds. They're extraordinary. In pelargoniums, they have this little tail, and it twists. And what it does, the plant gets rid of the seeds. They dry and they fly off, and they twist as they go down, and they dig themselves into the ground. And it's extraordinary. It's just an absolute miracle. This is what they look like when they're being reproduced by cuttings. This is what we do when we cut them. We put them in, or at least my propagator puts them in 72 plug trays. Just takes a little cutting and puts it in the tray. And this is not working at the moment. Okay. Okay. We use white willow bark powder when we're doing a propagation. It's natural, and it's just ground up bits of willow. And if you're near a willow or you drive by a willow, you can stop off and get some twigs and some leaves and grind them up yourself and make your own. Or you can just make willow bark water and use that. It gives you about 2 weeks of protection from diseases. And it's not a huge amount, but it's better than getting some kind of chemical if you feel that way. This is what I live with. We've gone through, I don't know how many of Felcos. These are Felco number 2s in the last 40 years. I can't even estimate, probably about 20, I think. And we all use them. They're very good because you can replace the blades. You don't have to throw the whole thing out. And these are Pelargonium cotyledonous. This is a very interesting pelargonium. It occurs on the island of Réunion in the Atlantic. And it has white flowers and very fat, stubby branches. And it's a pot plant. Because it's Pelargonium cotyledonous, you can grow it from seed. Pelargonium, big P, little c tells you can grow it from seed. And but you also can do cuttings, but this is what it looks like when you've done cuttings. It looks like it's been amputated. And so we usually recommend seed just to save the look of the plant. This is a geranium. This is Geranium pyrenaicum. It's the lavender blue flowers. And that can be grown from crown divisions. That's the division that sits on the ground where the stems come out of. And it also can be grown from seed. It's an outlier. But it's a vivid blue. It seeds around a bit in the garden, so if you don't like that, then you shouldn't use it. But otherwise, people usually like to be mildly invaded, not totally invaded, and that's what it looks like in the flower form. Pelargonium tetragonum, again, seed, because big T, big P, little t, seed, but you could also, on this one, very strangely, use broken pieces of the stem, because there are joints on the stem, and each of those joints, if it's buried, will produce roots. You have to get to love each one of these because a lot of them are different. It's amazing the variety in this particular genus. Pelargonium tomentosum, we've got some of these up on the table. This is the peppermint-scented pelargonium. And I'll talk a little bit about those in a bit, but they can be produced from seed, but you can also do stem cuttings on those. And I'll tell you how to do a stem cutting in a bit. Pelargonium ionidiflorum, one of the few pelargoniums that spreads through the ground. You can use it as a ground cover. And I have customers who send me photos of these stunning displays of this in these brilliant pink and almost dark pink colors as they move out like this. This is my propagator, Lupe, who's cutting up a Pelargonium ionidiflorum, and she's just using a pair of Thelcos. It's growing in a 4-inch pot. Actually, we would grow our stock plants in 2 to 3 gallon size containers. And she's taking a stem cutting, and she's dipping it in white willow bark powder, and she's about to put it in this time in a 4-inch container. We wouldn't do this. We'd put it in a plug tray, but she was just showing me how we do it. The soil we use is, just 2 seconds and then I'll answer. The soil we use is, we're not allowed to send real soil through the mail, and we're a mail order nursery. So what I have to do is buy a non-soil soil. It's made up of coir, finely ground bark, a perlite, coir, which is the ground up coconut, and I think I'm forgetting something. Sand, horticultural sand, not beach sand, horticultural sand, different. So it doesn't have any salts in it. And we are allowed to send that through the mail. So that's what we do. Yes.
When Libby takes the cutting for the stem propagation, is she going below a node or something?
Yes. Is Lupe, when she takes the cutting, is she going below a node? A node is where the leaf stem joins the main stem of the plant. And so, yes, you go just below the node, but I have some photos of that in a minute. Seed collecting, you can go out and collect your own seed, and it's really fun. I have a colleague who lives in Greece, and he invited me to go collecting seed in northern Greece. And here we are up on top of a precipitous mountain, and I'm collecting this little white and pink flowers. Now, you'll probably look at this and have hysterics because they're very small and insignificant, but they weren't in cultivation. And so we collected seed, brought it back legally to the United States, and we grew plants which we now sell. And so just a close-up. It's Geranium subacutum. This is collecting this is what I tried to do in Cuesta del Obispo in Argentina. This is the area, it was up near the Bolivian border. And this is the plant, Venturianum. We go and we travel thousands of miles to look for plants. And when we get there, the plant is not in flower. And it's 3 weeks before we get back to our home. So what do? We sit by the roadside and cry because there is nothing we can do. We have to go back again some other time. This is not in cultivation. So I thought it was very pretty and would be a great choice for gardens, particularly drought tolerant gardens. but not this time. And this is another hunt for an Erodium Hartvegianum, which is, again, not in cultivation in northern Greece. And this is where it's found, beside the road. Often it's amazing. You can find really interesting things beside the road. I looked at this and I didn't see it, but my colleague saw it immediately. And here it is growing among rocks. And I'll just wait till I show you the flower, because you'll think, oh, she's crazy. But there's a larger clump of it. And this is what the flower looks like. There are only 3 yellow Erodiums in cultivation. 2 of them come from Turkey. And they're just charming flowers. There's something about them. Geranium Pelargonium, that's another one that I've collected in the wild. It's a blue with this interesting pebbled leaf. And here's my colleague out there looking for seed. You have to have a leap of faith when you look for plants in the wild, because they're not going to look like they would if you bought them from a nursery. They're going to look desiccated and exhausted and maybe eaten by insects or browsing animals. Or they may be in places where you really wouldn't want to go. I remember going and looking in Australia for an Erodium one time that was in a swamp that was infected by leeches. And it's just, it's not glamorous, kind of miserable. But it's worth it when you get back and see your little pet that you've collected growing and flowering. It's really exciting. And I must say, before I go any further, that I have all the appropriate permits. I go through agricultural hell, and I apply and get permits for everything I do. There are some Geraniums, Erodiums, and Pelargoniums you can't grow from seed. They're complex hybrids, which means that they've had lots of parents over the time when they've been crossed. And they have to be propagated vegetatively. They won't produce the same plants as the parents if you try seed. And it's amazing how many people don't understand this. You really, really can't grow them from seed and expect to get the same plant.
Do you get nice plants?
Sometimes you get nice plants. Sometimes, even if you get any plant, you think it's beautiful. And it's very, very difficult. You have to be able to know the range of plants available before you select one and put a name on it. Otherwise, if you're calling it after your Auntie Mary and you love your Auntie Mary, but it looks like something else that's, whatever you can think of, then it's not helpful for all of us. It's helpful only when the plant is exceptional. This is Winifred Werner. I'm telling you this because Winifred Werner is a friend of mine. She's 102, and she collected this in the 1950s in Western Australia as she was walking back from her day school to her parents' home. And she grew it at her parents' house, and then during the 1950s, she came back from the United States where she was living, and she collected the seed again. Now, it's one of the paint box pelargoniums, but we don't know which one. And so I decided to call it after her because we really didn't know the name. But it's charming, I think. It's just lovely. And this is Apple Blossom Rosebud. This was Queen Victoria's favorite. So it has been around and propagated by gardeners, vegetatively, by stem cuttings, since the 19th century. So I think round about 1880s, something like that. This is Mrs. Pollock. I'm showing you a group of them because I found them at a plant fair in France. And that says mi ombre, and it's half shade. So you keep them in half shade just because of the leaf color. We sell all of these, by the way. And this is Mr. Frank Headley. It's considered bad form to call a plant after yourself. He did. But it's a beautiful plant too. It's really nice. Captain Starlight. He was a bushranger, somebody who went out and held up coaches in Australia in the 19th century. I have no idea why he ended up as a pelargonium. imperial butterfly. These are angels and pansy face, and they're small. And the plants are relatively small, so they're great for places on patios where you don't have a lot of room. Little gem is a scented leaf, and all of these, because of the name, have to be propagated vegetatively. Crispum variegatum, this is an English label. Here it's known as Prince Rupert variegated. Prince Rupert was the German Kaiser's brother during the First World War. So how it ended up with Prince Rupert variegated, who knows? It's kind of embarrassing. I'm not sure why. Chocolate mint. This is, it's supposed to smell of chocolate and mint. I think it really probably just smells of mint, and the chocolate is because of the blotch people associated with chocolate. But I don't know. Anyway, it's a wonderful plant for the garden. And apricot. All of these, again, would be stem cuttings. Charity, smells like lemon balm, and it's much beloved by landscape designers because of the color of the leaves. Charme snow flurry, another scented leaf with long trailing branches, so it's kind of nice for a container, and it smells of rose. So how to propagate pelargoniums. This is what the greenhouse looks like when we've had our way with it and cut them all back. This is like the slaughter of the innocents. It's terrible. It looks terrible, but it's very practical. It tells you how to make a pelargonium cutting. So you cut a branch from the plant, and then you remove all but the top 2 or 3 leaves and the stipules. Those are those little flaps where the leaf joins the main stem. You can see them as little sort of roundish shaped pieces of material. You make a horizontal cut through the node using a sharp knife or a razor blade. Oh, please God, not a razor blade though. Be careful. You don't want to make a cutting of your fingers. You use a sharp knife, but be very, very careful. If the leaves are large, you can cut away a portion of the leaf to reduce the possibility of the wilting during the establishment of roots, but you don't have to. This is what they look like after you pop them in the growing medium. And this is about, I think this is about 6 weeks. So they develop roots usually from the base, but sometimes along where the nodes are. And then you pop them into containers. Because we have, I have 2 staff in the greenhouse, but it's a huge amount of work because we grow over 1,000 different plants. We put them straight into 4-inch, but you have to be more careful with watering. And Antonio, who is working with me here today, he does the watering, and so he has to gauge when the plant needs water. And this is what it looks like when we're making the cutting. It's a lot of work. It's huge amounts of work, and I'm lucky I have wonderful staff. But you get to know each plant personally in order to make it grow properly. This is Pelargonium splendide, so you can see from the title that you can only make cuttings. You can't grow it from seed. And now I'm just going to show you a few different groupings of pelargoniums. This is an ivy leaf. They're called ivy leaves because the leaves resemble heterohelix, which is ivy, German ivy, the stuff you plant in the garden. This one won an exhibition in the 1880s in London at the Crystal Palace. It's a wonderful plant because the leaves are green and white, and then when it's a little bit cool, they go pink. And there's one just hanging over the edge of the pot over there. This is a group called the balcons. They're plants of the window boxes of Europe. So if you go traveling in Switzerland or France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, you'll see these hanging out of balconies, and they're usually single-flowered and immensely floriferous. They flower and flower and flower. And this one is up in the Dolomites in northern Italy. King of the balcons is a pale pink. Balcon Royale is red. And I think we have a white one as well. These are interesting plants. This one with these white stripes was brought up from Mexico by a wonderful plants woman in the 1950s. She came up to California. Her name was Frances Hartzell. And she made a whole lot of different varieties using the plant she brought up. This one is croqueta. She brought up the crocodile. Brown's butterfly, which is in the greenhouse here. I just saw it. This was from the garden of a Mr. Brown in California. This is a Martha Washington or a Regal. And it's probably the darkest one I grow. It's almost black in certain lines. Georgia peach, adored by most of my customers. We never have it in enough of them. It's just very soft colors and goes with other plants, I think. And clown. Clown is interesting because geraniums are genetically, or pelargoniums are genetically unstable. And so what they'll do is they'll change their flower color and they'll change their leaf color. Not when you want them to, but when you don't want them to. So clown turned itself into a pink flower and it didn't go back to white. It stayed pink and will remain pink forever. And that's what happened with all the colored leaved pelargoniums too. This one is Cara, which is a more compact. It's about this high. And it's just a lovely plant. Julio, the Martha Washingtons are renowned for having very vibrant colors. And this one is amazing. Just totally beautiful. And we have 3 very good white forms of pelargonium. And these are much beloved by gardeners, particularly gardeners of fashion. So at the moment, white is fashionable, I have to tell you. And so we don't have any for sale. We've sold them all. We have White Glory, White Champion, White Cascade. And then we have La Paloma, which has a tiny pink line in the upper petal. Pelargonium species. These are what you'd find if you went out into the bush. And this is the most extraordinary one of all. It looks like a collection of dried twigs most of the year. And then all of a sudden, in the winter, it'll suddenly grow a few minuscule leaves, and then it'll produce these incredible flowers. They have to be very carefully watered because no summer water for this one. But they are astounding, and just a reminder that this is a very varied family. This one, Pelargonium schizopetalum. It has fragrant leaves, tuberous roots, and when I was collecting this one up in the Drakensberg Mountains of South Africa, it has these gigantic roots that go down, 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 down. And the then director of the Berkeley Botanic Garden had lent me a trenching tool as a kindness, because we were out in the bush. And so I had dug a hole to see where the roots went. And somebody unkindly took a picture of my backside with my head 18 inches down into the hole, looking for the root of Pelargonium schizopetalum. And I couldn't find the end of it. There are what they call veld fires, the fires of the grasslands of South Africa, and I think it's a response to that. The plant is the roots are sheltered so that they can't get burned, which is amazing, really. But it's a fascinating plant. This is the root. This is a tiny root. This is what it looks like, and this is Lupe again. And she's just putting it in soil. You just separate the roots and put them in the container. And always, always write a label with any plant you have. Write it on your wrist if you have to, but write it down, please. I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, what is the name of my plant? And, we grow 1,000, but there are probably 10,000 or more, 20,000 floating around out there, and we just don't know all the names. And it's a pity because each name has a history and it's an identifier. Geraniums and erodiums, how to propagate them. This is Geranium magnificum. The difference between pelargoniums and geraniums is we have been talking about what are really woody sub-shrubs, little small shrubs with woody stems in general. Not always, but in general. Pelargoniums are herbaceous perennials, which means that they have perennial roots, a perennial crown, which is the bit that sits right on the surface, and annual leaves and flowering stems. So that's the difference. That's the physical difference. So these have crowns and roots, annual leaves and flowering stems. So these will die down in the winter, and the plant will not totally disappear in this climate, but in a cold climate it would. And then they produce in the spring these amazing, huge production of flowers. We love them. I love them. I think that they're wonderful plants, and every garden, even if you're a pot gardener, you can grow these. So how do you divide a hardy geranium? Aha! You always look at the structure of the plant. So before you do anything, and this applies to pelargoniums too, you just stand over it and look at it and think what you're going to do. But with hardy geraniums, does it have short, congested stems and a long taproot? Does it have long, thin, woody stems? Does it have a congested collection of crowns close to the surface? Does it have rhizomatous roots that go through the ground? Does it have one or two crowns? Does it have tubers? Is it patented? If it's patented, somebody like me can't, I have to buy it from a company. The last time I checked, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, over 9 million plants of Geranium roseanne had been sold, which is absolutely incredible for one plant, and particularly a geranium, which aren't very well known. So what do? You have to look at the plant first to decide what to do. So with these particular ones, you look at the crown, and this would be Geranium macrorhizum, or no, wait a minute. Let's go back again. This would be either the erodiums or the alpine groups of true geraniums, Geranium cinereum. And what they look like, the structure looks like this. These are the roots. This is the crown, and these little things, knobs, are the things that you cut. So they look like little fingers sticking up from the top of the crown. And so you cut them off, and you make a cutting about 1 inch to 1.5 inches long. And then you can, so this would be one that you would do that to. You'd put each of these little fingers in the soil, and it will develop roots. And there's another one. This is a different one, Franz Delight. And this one is one that you probably have seen in pink, maybe, because I see these in nurseries. This is Erodium reichhardii album, but you also just have plain reichhardii, and that's a little pink thing. And you do the same. It has a long taproot, a crown, and then these little things that look like fingers that you can cut off and stick in the soil, and they'll grow. Also, a Geranium cinereum nui. This one, the same method. Geranium incanum comes from South Africa, and it has long, thin stems. So you don't do crown divisions. You cut the stems, and you do that with pelargoniums too. So these are just probably about 4 inches, 5 inches maybe. Retain a few leaves, 3 to 5 leaves. Remove the excess leaves so that the plant doesn't spend all its water trying to keep leaves alive when there's nothing below and there are no stems. Brookside, this is a lovely one that I grow in my garden, and it's crown division. And you cut the separate roots with this one, and then just you cut the crowns and just pull the whole thing apart, and then you can plant each separate part, and you don't have to do anything more than just cut them, crown division. And this you do with Magnificum. And xylostemon is another one that you do crown division with. These, you can tell just by looking at them. So before you do any propagation, you just sit and look at the plant and think about how it's structured. This is Geranium Margaret Wilson, and this one would be crown division. And this is Sanguinium striatum, and again, crown division. And this is Pratense Cloud 9. This one you also would do crown division, but this one is Geranium macrorhizum. This one you see in gardens. This is taken in nature up in the northern part of northern Greece, up near the Macedonian border. And it's a ground cover. This is what it looks like in the wild when you go to collect it. Just a huge mass. And you just pull a little piece out of the ground and it has roots attached. So that's all you need to do. And so this is a rhizomatous rooted one, and this is what it looks like. You just cut it and plant it. Then we have hybrids of Geranium xylostemon. This one is rare and hasn't been labeled, hasn't got a name. And with things like that, I feel very unnerved because I've only got one plant. It's, what is it? It's 6,000 miles to England to get another one. And I just don't know what to do. So what we usually do is take root cuttings, single root cuttings like this. So the roots are on the left, and this is the cutting that you should make on the right. So you discard the top bit, and then you keep the middle bit and discard the bottom bit. So you want the thick part of the root. And then you just plant it, making sure that you keep it the same way going up. Don't plant everything upside down like one of my employees once did. So, because they won't grow that way. But the problem with this is that it's not very efficient. And so you lose. I think we have about a 35% take rate on this, which is pathetic, really. This is Geranium macrostylum, growing in Greece, and this is the last group I have in the genus Geranium. These are these little purple dots in the photograph. These are tuberous rooted plants, and there they are. There are a whole lot of geraniums in Europe, and particularly in Central Asia, that have tubers. And you pull them, if you pull them out, you can see them. Each species has a different shaped tuber. Some of them look like pencils. Some of them look like flying saucers. They're just remarkable. Some of them look like turnips. And this is Geranium roseanne, which is patented and propagated by tissue culture. And of course, I have to buy from the tissue culture lab. So that one is this one over here. Now this is a peacock who liked to live in a clump of roseanne. I think because it matched his colors. These are the tubers. This is what they look like, and you just divide them and plant them. I grow Geranium tuberosum, and Geranium libani. Libani comes from Lebanon, and it's a lovely one for the garden, and it flowers in the spring, and then you just forget about it, and it'll come back up again year after year. Pelargonium Caroline citrine. This is a pelargonium that's also tissue cultured because of the remarkable color. It's normally green, but in certain, this one was selected by a guy called Don Reiners in Sacramento, and it's just developed these amazing yellow leaves. So those are the pelargoniums in the geraniums, and I thought I would just use the last couple of minutes to show you the different groups. So we were talking about the hardy geraniums, and so this is Geranium roseanne. I'm sorry we don't have bigger plants to show you because this is winter or going into winter, and they're kind of cutting back. But we have about 500 pelargoniums, and we have about 500 geraniums and about 1,000 pelargoniums. So we have many different ones. And we really do collect the old varieties. So we have things like this. These are called the stellars because they've got the shreddy little petals. And this one is Arctic Star. We have the ones that have colored leaves. And this one is, I have to look at this. This is Mrs. J.C. Mappin. We don't know. In the 19th century, it was common for women to be named, for plants to be named for women, but usually women with their husbands' names. So we have no idea who Mrs. J.C. Mappin really was. It's really awful. We have Martha Washington's, and I think I had 2 flowers that we had in flower. These flower in the spring and early summer, so we can, we couldn't bring any more. But these are we have, I think, at least a couple of hundred of these different ones. We have, let's see what else we have. We have rosebuds. This is apple blossom rosebud, and this was Queen Victoria's, apparently, her favorite. I think she had a number of favorite plants. I think maybe she was really nice and said, "Oh, that's lovely," and they said, "Oh, it's her favorite plant," but we don't know. Then we have scented leaf over here, and we have this is Pelargonium. This is the one that had the colored leaves. It has a little bit of pink and the white flowers. But we also have kind of flossy looking ones with brightly colored flowers. They come in magenta and pink and white. They also come with variegated leaves. And this one, if I can extract it, has variegated leaves. So this one is Roller's Plenty, and the leaves are variegated on the older leaves. We have scented leaf. We have, these are lemon scented. There are up to 120 different volatile oils in the scented leaf. And so there's a combination of these, not a whole 120 in each plant, but various combinations of them in each plant, which give them the characteristic scent. So if you press the leaf and then smell, you won't get a scent if you just pass by it without touching it. So you have to actually sort of bruise it. But bruising it doesn't seem to bother it, because I've had these shows where thousands of people have touched them and they've been totally fine. The leaves haven't died or dropped off. So we have, that's lemon. This is the strongest one we have. This is citronellum. And it smells incredibly powerful. But it's very nice, particularly if you don't smell things strongly. It's a really nice one to have. And we have apple. This is apple. I grow this one at home. I have a choice of hundreds of these things to grow, but this is one I grow. And it will take half sun. So it's a lovely one for partial shade. And the flowers are little white sprays, but the leaves smell of green apples, and they're just delicious. And they're soft too, and it makes a plant about this big. So it's really a pretty one. A question over here. Yes.
Does that leaf get big?
It gets to about this size.
Because I have one in my backyard, they said it was apple. It's lovely like that with the white little flowers. And the leaves, the larger leaves, I take off and I use it on a cheese platter. And everybody says, oh, what is that smell? It's the leaf.
You're not asking people to eat the leaf.
No. It's sitting on it. Is that safe?
I don't know. You know, I tried not to tell people to ingest any of the scented leaf, just because I don't know who's allergic to what, and I want you all to be safe. So I don't recommend food eating leaves, eating pelargonium leaves at the other. I don't eat them. No.
But
So
they do smell wonderful.
they do smell wonderful, and they're very old-fashioned. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they've been passed hand to hand. So that in itself is a miracle, because when you think about plants in stores and things, these have gone over the garden wall, and they've gone to the next door neighbor, they've gone to nieces and nephews and daughters, and it's just it's a wonderful sort of group thing where everybody gives everybody else their thing. And there are just an amazing variety of scents. There's lime, there's lemon, there's strawberry, and there's peach, and there's peppermint, and rose, and one that my employees have called dead fish. so it just depends on what you've got. But do come up here afterwards and just smell these, because they're just fantastic. This one is this is attar roses. No, wait a minute. Uh-oh. This is lemon kiss. We don't have any of attar roses. I don't think so. We do? Is it here? Okay. This one is attar roses, and this one is the best rose scent. It's sweet, and it's mild, and it's very pleasant. Some of them smell a bit strong, or not quite sweet, but you just have to smell them and see what you like. And then this one is one we describe as being genetically challenged. It's a rose scent, but it doesn't open properly, and the flowers, instead of opening up as discrete petals, are formed little pink tubes. So it's fascinating. And this one is called Colocho. So here it is. And it makes a great sort of bonsai thing in a pot, even if the flowers aren't very attractive. So
Do you have any that could be used as ground cover?
well, the closest to ground covers would be the ivy. If you're in an area where it's very mild in the winter, if it's very frosty, you can't, because they're not hardy below 28 degrees. So if you have winter temperatures below 28, you need to either put them on a covered porch, or up against the house, or in where it's really cold, you have to bring them inside. But otherwise, if it's mild, and you've grown them before in the garden, of course you can grow them outside. But they're fascinating. We grow, I forget how many varieties of scented leaf we have. About 150, I think. 150 different ones. Yes.
Are we going to transplant those right away?
You can, yeah, but don't transplant them into a barrel this size, because what you want to do is make the roots touch the edge of the container, no matter what container you're in. When the roots touch the edge of the container, they can be transferred to a larger container. But if you put them in a too big a container, and it takes too long for them to get out to the edge, then they're not going to do well. They do better as you incrementally increase the size of the container.
Could we,
What about exposure?
Yeah. They're different for different terrain.
Yes, yeah, it is. The exposure is different depending on what you're growing. Some plants, for example, the apple and the peppermint, particularly. This is the peppermint here. These can tolerate quite a lot of shade, so you can grow these in half to 3/4 shade, not shade where only where only doormats flourish. Light shade with plenty of light coming in. Deep shade, no. Plants, none of these plants will do well in deep shade, but light shade, yes. So, but the rest of them probably at least 4 to 6 hours sun if you can do it. If you grow them on windowsills, then you have to be a bit careful, because the light source is only coming from one direction, and so you have to turn the plant. And if you do a quarter turn a week,
then you'll keep the plant growing in a normal way. Otherwise, it will grow out towards the light source. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes.
If I'm growing on a windowsill and it's the south side, so it's getting a lot of light, is that too much light for it?
You have to look at the plant and see. You're the doctor, so you look at it and see if the leaves are looking burnt, either the colour's fading or else they're actually burning, to see what's happening with them. Sometimes too much light, just the plant will shut down. It won't grow. And so the best thing to do is to just keep checking on it. Give it a quarter turn once a week, so that you're constantly moving it around, and that helps. It's difficult growing on windowsills. It's a real challenge. It's not easy at all. But if you have no other option, it's worthwhile. Any other questions?
I'm gonna see if there are any internet questions. I'm gonna
Yes,
come back here.
that'd be lovely. Yeah. You prefer grit? What do you use?
Grit, what, you can buy it. Either river sand would work. Which is called horticultural sand. The main thing for me, for at least telling people who buy plants, the main thing is that you keep a label with the plant, so that if you want to know about it later, you can tell me what it's called, and that you think about it as a living thing that needs, just like kids or friends, they need care. And if you think about the watering generally, I think for pelargoniums at least, not the hardy geraniums so much, but the pelargoniums, is critical. Watering is if you forget to water them, they're going to live. If you think about watering them every day, they're going to die. So in a nutshell, that's the care advice. Yes. Any questions?
Not from the internet.
No? I've exhausted everyone. Thank you very much. Anyway.
Thank you, Robin. That was great. So much interesting information and just wealth of. I'm going to your website to get some more information.
If it's online, you can go back and have a look at it. You can always email me. My email is geraniac@pacbell.net, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'm good about answering questions. So if you write to me, I try to do it within the same day. So, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. In a few days, all attendees will be emailed a link to a recording of this presentation and evaluation form. Any unanswered questions can be addressed at that time. We appreciate feedback on what worked and where we can improve. So please fill out your evaluation forms. Join us for future seminars and workshops. There are still a few spaces available for our popular succulent topped pumpkin workshop on October 6th. You register on our website, sanmatelarboretum.org/classes-events. Also become a member of the Arboretum Society and you'll receive a discount in our nursery and also on the workshops. And also a variety of nurseries and businesses on the peninsula. The Arboretum Society has a variety of volunteer opportunities in the greenhouse, nursery, and much more. Let us know if you're interested. You can make a note on the evaluation form or email us at info@sanmateloarboretum.org. Huge thank you again to Robin for today's program, to Kevin, our technical specialist, and Pat, education member, and to all of you for joining us today. Thank you. Program's now finished.
One last thing, we have a container for donations if anybody's so inclined.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.